And you're gonna ice barrage the nibblers. Ice barrage the nibblers.
Okay. I'm on the wrong spell book.
Okay, that's a problem.
Okay. Luckily, I have a max cape.
Switch your spell book, girl.
I'm hiding.
That pillar's going down.
No!
Every RuneScape player's journey eventually leads them on a pilgrimage to the fiery depths of the Karamjan volcano. Inside exists a challenge like nothing they've faced before. 62 waves of lava creatures, culminating in a boss that can kill you in a single hit, regardless of your level. Completing that cave for most is their first real taste of achievement, but for some players, that only makes them hungry for more. They have to go deeper. 3 months ago, my girlfriend finally maxed her OSRS account. She started it the second year we dated, and it took her a little over 8 years to finally finish the game. I say that ironically because she's far from done. There's a reason she nicknamed this game Capescape, because everything in it seems to always somehow revolve around getting a cool new cape. The reward for maxing an account is a cape of accomplishment that stands above the rest. The Max Cape is the pinnacle of player achievement in OSRS. Or is it? Like many players, many moons ago she embarked on a journey to earn her fire cape in the belly of the volcano.
Woo!
But the next step on that journey is RuneScape's greatest challenge.
If you sacrifice your fire cape to me, I can take your word, but I like my cape.
You already have the Jad Pet. What do you need all those fire capes for anyways? You're not gambling capes. The Inferno is the Fight Cave's much scarier sister. It's 69 waves of some of the most ferocious enemies in the game, capped off with a boss fight against an enemy that can one-shot you if it so much as looks at you. The reward for beating this gauntlet is the Infernal Cape, the best melee cape in the entire game, and a direct upgrade to the Fire Cape earned for beating the Fight Caves. For added spice, it can be combined with the Max Cape to create the Infernal Max, a symbol of players' mastery over skilling and combat in one massive flex of a cape. Many players have convinced themselves they don't need to chase the Infernal Cape. I ought to know, but a year ago I decided enough was enough, and that it was time to stop being afraid. Cape. Cape, 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 cape. Now, my girlfriend has come to the same decision. But why is she doing this now? Simply put, it's because her max cape is going away soon. With the release of Sailing this November, she'll no longer be a maxed player, and the cape will be unequipped until she sails her way up to 99. Obviously, she can beat the challenge without it, but the fact she has one makes this a use it or lose it type of situation. She's got about a month before Sailing launches. The Inferno's no joke though. Nothing else in the game quite prepares you for what it demands. Luckily, she's got a super cool teacher. Not to mention, if she can pull it off, I'd appreciate the extra DPS at Duo next.
We shall go together.
So with that being said, she made a withdrawal from the Bank of Boyfriend and we sat down together to start learning.
I'm going in!
So if you're seeing this, hopefully that means she made it.
Whee!
So there she was, wearing her max cape, playing the game her favorite way, pet hunting, when all of a sudden she got a harebrained idea. Honestly, I'm just glad it was this and not getting a dog this time. Leading up to Sailing, the player base was frantic, and somewhere amidst all the chaos, my girlfriend got caught up in the pandemonium.
Oh yeah, I need my max cape. I never leave home without it.
She's been making the most of her max cape while she still got it, but it's difficult to ignore that it's the best cape to wear for a learner to use in the Inferno. It's a combination of every skill mastery in the game, and that means it provides benefits like extra prayer propulsion, ammo conservation, and weight reduction to name only a few. So I guess all the commotion ended up getting to her.
I'm gonna be making a big leap.
So what exactly is it about this challenge that makes people sweat just thinking about it? Is it clicking things at 0.6 second intervals? The fact that it takes 2 hours? How about fighting 3 of the final boss from the fight caves at once?
I mean, you know what? I have confidence because I can paint my nails and read my book while fighting Jad now.
Okay, well there you go. Do you think you can do that while fighting 3 of them?
Oh, fuck.
For the uninitiated, the Inferno is RuneScape's longest wave-based challenge. It's got 69 waves of enemies, each more complex than the one before it. Everything in the Inferno happens in layers, and it all starts with this one little bat. No, not the bat, the nibblers.
See, what the hell? That is not a bat. Where are the nibblers? Oh my god, they're nibbling! The nibblers are nibbling! Shit! Get back here, you little shits!
By himself, the bat isn't much of a threat, but each wave there will be something new to contend with. The waves of enemies in the Inferno compound, so anytime you get a matching pair of monsters, the next wave will replace that duo with a higher tier of monster.
Am I just pretty much just chilling with that for a while? Like, I'm not gonna really be touching my T-bow
The
at the
T-bow is not until the majors show up.
Okay.
You will not need the T-bow until the majors show up.
Do you like that I called it my T-bow?
I was gonna say, our T-bow apparently, like what?
Our TiVo.
And this trend continues all the way to the end. There are 5 tiers of monsters that compound like this, and after battling 2 of the strongest tier of monster on wave 66, she'll enter the last 3 waves, which are the boss waves. We got a long way to go before then, though.
This one says unsafe. Okay, yes.
Okay, you don't need to know about the unsafe tile. We are about like 2 hours away from the unsafe tile being something you need to worry about. The main mechanical challenge on her part will be to utilize the 3 pillars in the room to hide behind for protection as to deal with the different monsters on her own terms. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And to test your endurance, there are also these little guys called nibblers.
Stop nibbling!
The nibblers spawn on every single wave, but rather than go after you, they like to attack the pillars. So very quickly, this becomes sort of a base defense game where you're juggling the waves while simultaneously protecting your pillars from getting nibbled.
They keep trying to go for my pillar. I don't appreciate that.
If she loses her pillars, she loses her cover. And without something to hide behind, a learner is basically doomed down here.
I'm alive. My pillar may not be alive, but I am.
The way she'll deal with the nibs is using ice magic. She can hit them in a 3x3 square, and if not take them down outright, at the very least freeze them in place until she can.
Stop nibbling! I don't understand how people freaking like control these things. They just get all the way over there.
So let's have a quick rundown of the basics. Some very smart people have figured out that the northmost pillar of the Inferno is the best one to use for cover, and it's where she'll spend the majority of her time. I do enjoy how much you spend, like you hang out on the south side of North Pillar. When I was learning, I hated going to the south of the North Pillar. Enemies will file in behind it, and from there it's essentially a game of disarming a bomb without getting your arm blown off.
No!
Her success in the Inferno boils down to smart usage of her defensive prayers. Magic, range, and melee are the 3 types of attacks, and use of these 3 overhead prayers negates all damage of the corresponding type. Uh-oh, you're gonna take a hit there. Oh, but you tanked it. Nice.
It was a risk I had to take. Probably not, but it was a risk I took.
OSRS is basically a rhythm game, and alternating these prayers in timed enemy attacks is the solve for even the hardest of waves. So what are you praying this time, Taryn?
Range. I already made that mistake.
Just as she's getting comfortable down here, freezing nibblers and killing bats, she's gonna run into her first new enemy, the blob.
That is not a blob.
I regret to inform you, that is a blob.
That is a pissed off creature from hell.
The blob is difficult because nothing quite like them exists anywhere else in the game. Unlike every other enemy in RuneScape, which attack you the second they see you, blobs read your defensive prayer and will attack with the opposite style about 2 seconds later. Nothing else in the game does this, and it's a total brain twister the first time you encounter one.
Oh. Pray range. Nope. It's a little funky, but we're gonna make it work.
The trick here is to flick between her protection prayers to confuse the blob. If she goes too fast, he'll read her. But if she goes too slow, she won't have her shield up in time. It's all about finding the rhythm and practicing it enough that you don't have to think about it anymore. So instead of fighting this blob, I think what you should do is just practice. There you go. And let's just do this for a little bit.
Okay.
Because we're just getting comfortable with it. And I'm going to keep talking to you while you're doing it because you're going to have to be thinking about other things while doing this in the Inferno. You see, the whole challenge of the Inferno is built on principles. Dealing with a bat requires the same principles on wave 62 that are required on wave 1. The only difference is there are other monsters present. In order to create more bandwidth in her head for the stronger monsters coming down the line, she'll need to know the basics so well that she can do them without thinking.
What's that chick who's been stuck in the box for like 20 years?
I think you missed that one. She's stuck in the box for 20 years?
She's like a cave goblin.
Oh,
Starts with
Zanuck?
Z. Yeah.
Zanuck has been stuck in a box for 20 years. We tried the blobs for a bit, but I noticed she had trouble overthinking them. That's when I had an epiphany about how to train my girlfriend.
When you concentrate, you stink. I now see that the way to get through to you is with this.
So for practice, I had her pick a movie for us to watch, with the caveat that she'd be flicking a blob the entire time we watched it together. She wanted me to tell you that she picked the proposal. I don't want to get too complex right out of the gate, but since the blob reads her on an odd cycle, if she were to alternate her prayers every single game tick, then the blob will never be able to hit her. Basically what you're doing is you're waiting a tick after the projectile hits you and then you're switching. But like, I know that you don't think in ticks, you think in tic-tacs. So I'm just trying to make it easy for you by giving you a sound cue.
Thank you.
Putting this into practice, anytime Betty White was on screen, I had my girlfriend switch to one tick alternating. While not immediately necessary, knowing how to do this will come in handy when other monsters are on the field in future waves.
Blobbing and weaving.
This proved to be a game changer for the girlfriend learning algorithm because suddenly blobs weren't as scary anymore. They just became something she could heal off of.
Oh, a little reversey action. See that? See that? A little reversey action. I'm picking up what you're putting down, blobbies.
Blobs are the best source of health recovery because when they die, they split into 3 little bloblets. She can cast blood spells on these little guys and get a nice chunk of her HP back. Even the dreaded double blob waves aren't much trouble if you know how to alternate them, which is a good skill to have because everyone hates those waves.
Double blobs. Okay, friends. We're gonna just let the meleeer dig.
After a double blob wave, she gets to meet the meleeer. On paper, this guy should be a breeze because she can safe spot him from behind the pillar. The issue comes from the fact that he uses his brain.
I knew he was gonna do that. I knew he was gonna do that.
That was well dissected, Taryn. If unable to hit her, the meleeer will dig to be right on top of her. This adds an element of urgency to dealing with him because the longer he's around, the more likely he'll end up underfoot. Oh, you got a digger. You got a digger. Oh, you got a digger, Taryn. Oh, Christ.
Okay.
If the Inferno were a game of chess, he'd be like a knight because he has the ability to dramatically change the layout of the board by jumping pieces.
Okay, just one blob. Just one blob.
Okay, brew up.
Yep. Just pray the blob. I'm gonna brew.
You're doing okay. You're doing okay. That was a tough wave.
Oh, that was scary.
The silver lining here is that she has the stronger weapon, her brain, and you know where to go, right?
Here.
Exactly.
I feel like I'm doing a dance.
You kind of are.
And I'm good at dancing.
That's kind of the whole shtick, right? Enemies in RuneScape have this cute little quirk where they prioritize moving east and west over north and south. What that means is that as long as she can get him stuck on the east or west side of her pillar, then she can stand on the corner of his tile and hit him without him hitting her. This is called corner trapping. You've just corner trapped the melee.
Whoa! Which he can't hit me, but I'm right here.
Yeah, see, he's stuck. By the way, did I just say that worm has corners? For anyone wondering why there's a bunch of squares all over the screen, just know it's pretty normal these days. RuneScape can really be boiled down to clicking things at really specific and precise times, and the markers help pull back the skin of the world to see the tiles underneath.
Nobody's pinned. Everybody's pinned now.
Does it strip away some of the magic? I guess. But to be fair, we're not all 12-year-olds getting our armor trimmed anymore. As we've grown older, we've begun to appreciate the game in a more mechanical way. And I think that's cool.
Like, I would go back here, right?
Yeah, that's where I would go as well. And it's kind of more of an advanced technique, but it's very useful to know. He can get stuck like this on other monsters, not just the pillar.
I think some of the monsters are like this big, right?
Exactly, or even bigger. Exactly. So with some new tech to practice and a new enemy type, I'm sure you can guess what happened next. This time we watched The Princess Bride. As you wish. She spent the first half of the movie letting the worm dig to her and trapping him, and eventually I decided that was a little too easy and had her go all the way to wave 12 to flick a blob while dodging him for good measure.
See, this is fine. We're fine. So we're going to get health back with the blob.
After working her way to 2 melees, she's blessed with the next tier of monster. These guys use range attacks, so we'll call them the Rangers. There's not much to say about them. They don't really have any quirks like the previous monsters, other than this is why she learned to one-tick flick the blobs earlier.
Okay.
This is the one-tick. It's time for you to one-tick, Taryn.
I got
So,
this.
if she ever finds herself in a situation where she has to fight one of these and a blob at the same time, the one-tick flick is her savior. Or as she started calling it, the Betty White solve.
I'm doing it, Betty White. I did it. I did it.
Okay, you can go behind the pillar if you need to. You don't have to keep doing it. So long as she starts the pattern right after the ranger sees her, she should be completely safe from damage. This is because the ranger attacks on a 4-tick cycle, and the blob reads her on a 3-tick cycle. You clearly have the rhythm.
Thank you.
And then you just tank a blob. It doesn't make it any less stressful, as the ranger can still hit up to half her health if she messes up, but surely that's not going to happen.
Oh, Rangers. The Ranger. I'm probably going to die here. Fuck! I got ahead of myself.
It's important to note that in isolation, none of these things are all too threatening. It's when you've got something attacking you, you're flicking a blob, and there's the looming threat of a melee digging. I mean, you can imagine why mistakes happen.
Just breathe. You're good.
Oftentimes, when you're first learning this, you'll run into a situation where things just go up in smoke. For whatever reason, you lose control of the wave and things start hurting you. The best solve for emergencies like this is the DPS solution, which is just a fancy way of saying kill something before it can kill you.
We're gonna chop him again.
Okay, that was... Of all the girlfriend solutions, Taryn...
I'm alive!
It shouldn't be the solution for every wave. That's a good way to burn through supplies real quick. Maybe it's because she wasn't buying her own potions, but my girlfriend clearly didn't get the memo on that because she loved to just DPS her way to victory when things would get scary.
I had to do a weird... It was the girlfriend solution. It was weird. The blobs, we were in the middle. It was weird.
I'll say this once. A cape is a cape, even if it's a girlfriend cape. She's very fortunate to be rocking some of the best equipment in the game, courtesy of her, I guess I'm a benefactor. But the point is, in modern gear, her DPS is strong enough she can mow things down in a pinch. DPS solutions usually involve getting pretty beat up, though, and even taking a single hit off prayer can mean death if she's not at full health. So the saving grace here is that she can try to squeeze HP out of the enemies using blood magic since it has lifesteal. Taryn, you're gonna get health from the blob. You don't need to be...
It's so tempting. Though.
I don't know why you always have to do this, Taryn.
He's so juicy.
Oh my god. Now, I'm always telling her, do not blood barrage the rangers for health. I know it's tempting, but it's really not worth the trouble. Taryn, please.
I want the health, okay?
I don't think it's worth it. First of all, it takes forever and drains a ton of prayer. Second of all, it uses a ton of blood runes, which is expensive for me since I'm the one bankrolling all of this. I guess I'm being a little dramatic, but speaking of, today's video sponsor is none other than Old School RuneScape. Yes, believe it or not, they are also funding my girlfriend's Inferno attempts. Gee, that would have been nice when I was learning. I guess that's the perk of being the cuter half of the duo over here at Boy Meets Girl, but oh well. Anyways, we're so excited to share some of the hype for Old School RuneScape's newest skill ever.
I'm level 1.
Sailing is the first skill update since the reboot of Old School servers back in 2013, and they really hit a home run here. But Olmut's looking at me like, you're not gonna fuck this up, right? The skill's been an ongoing April Fool's joke amongst the community dating way back to before Old School's release. I vaguely remember hearing rumors on the playground about it, but oh no, it's real, and it's finally here. Level 2, Taryn. I haven't heard fireworks in years. We've been running around Gielinor for decades, staring out at the open sea, wondering what's out there beyond the skybox. But thanks to sailing, we finally can go and see for ourselves. That guy's fighting a bull shark.
Oh.
And he's losing. At the time of upload, sailing is already live, and with it, there's never been a better time to get your feet wet and give OSRS a try for yourself. We've got a link down in the description if you're interested, and hopefully Taryn and I run into you on the high seas. Yo, what the I just like fished up cowhide? Oh, I'm a little kid again. Once again, we want to thank Jagex and Old School RuneScape for sponsoring today's video and giving us a nice excuse to play one of our favorite couples games. Currently, we're crawling our way back to 99, but we're having a blast doing it. Level 10 sailing, Taryn. She started to get pretty deep here, and it's time to see what happens when you combine two rangers. The quadruped monster that spawns is the final enemy type before she gets to the boss waves. You might think that means she's getting close, but this is technically the halfway point.
Oh, I get to bring out the T-bow now.
The frog dog attacks with magic, so we'll call them majors, and they work a lot like the rangers we talked about earlier. The one big difference is he's got the annoying ability to resurrect enemies you've already killed on a wave.
I'm gonna shoot him first whenever possible because I do not want him to bring back anybody else.
These guys are why the Inferno takes so damn long. You want to try and kill them first to avoid them resurrecting stuff you've already taken out. But sometimes that's not the easiest way to solve a wave.
Or I can pin him and just take out the...
Don't know that there's a good way to pin him without
magic-y.
running straight into the magic-y guy. Oh, oh, oh.
Oh my god.
You know what, Taryn? That was the most girlfriend solve I've ever seen. Like, I don't even know what to say to that. But it worked for you. The Major hit 70s, which is pretty scary when your maximum health is 99. Wow.
I don't know. RuneScape knowledge clicked into place.
That was hilarious. Well, so it looked like you decided you're like, I'm going to wrap around the pillar to pull the blob in and give myself some options.
That's what I was trying to do.
Tick 1, Major goes, all right, I'm bringing the melee back. And then in a weird turn of events, you like hid under him.
I defaulted to Nex.
Yeah, you like next step undered him, and then he became a pillar for the melee. That was actually cool. That was really cool. I wouldn't recommend doing that again, but it was cool. Contrary to what we just saw, Girlfriend typically goes with the safest solve, which can make an attempt drag when she ends up killing everything twice. Yeah, especially now. Yeah, no, you're okay, you're okay. Check out. If you step one tile away...
Uh-huh.
No. The other one.
Oh, okay.
Now you can corner trap the melee on the mage, you see?
Yes. So where can I go where the blob can't see me?
Okay, taking out bats, I guess.
He's just bringing back
gonna
everybody.
Be here forever, Taryn. That melee is gonna dig. Okay, you know where to go.
Yes! Oh my god, that was so cool! Yes!
The further you get, the smaller the margin for error becomes as timings become tighter and tighter.
Oh my god, I have to Betty White. Okay.
You feeling good?
I'm feeling good. Can I use rigor or no?
Go ahead and use rigor.
Okay.
You're okay. You don't need to panic.
Okay.
Just take a breather.
It's just this one's more scary than with the ranger.
Once you build your first major, you're essentially doing everything you just did all over again, but with him hanging around hurling orbs at you every wave.
From where I'm standing, they can't hit me because the major's so big.
The mage is a pillar, Taryn.
The mage is a pillar! This changes everything.
A lot of the challenge for the later waves comes down to the mental battle of how much time is lost from a small mistake. Her own nerves are her greatest enemy here, because while that may be true, a success makes all that invested time all the more worthwhile. Oh. It was the nibblers that got you, Taryn.
It was the nibblers!
At wave 60, she'll have one of each monster, and at this point the waves begin to collapse. After the fabled double mage wave, she's finally made it to the boss waves. Careful, Joliet, here comes Tiztok Jad.
Hush!
So in the fight caves, the culmination of making it to the final wave is a boss fight against Jad, the great granddaddy of RuneScape PvM. Granddad Jad will attack you with either ranged slam attacks or magic fireball attacks, and Girlfriend has to pray correctly against it or risk getting O-code. The big caveat is that at half health, Jad will spawn healers that she'll need to tag off of him before finishing.
Normal Jad, he just looks funny.
She hunted a ton of Jad this last year while going for the pet, and while he can still one-shot her if she makes a mistake, her nerves are steeled and she's confident she won't mess up. She's used to half paying attention and painting her nails while fighting him, for God's sakes. So this wave is pretty much a gimme. But for the next one, she's gonna want to close that bottle of polish.
Come on, Jad, I got this. Okay.
Nice job, girl. You're doing fine. Just keep praying. Triple Jads is one of those things that sounds a lot scarier than it actually is. It's kind of like attacking one Jad that hits 3 times as fast. The real trick is to not get distracted by the healers and to always be keeping an eye on what the next Jad is going to do.
Okay.
Here we go. Every moment in her RuneScape journey has led up to this battle. Every single skill level, every single rare drop, all 5,000 hours of playtime across the past 8 years have led up to this moment. At the beginning of all of this, I said that everything compounds and builds off each other in the Inferno, and the final battle is the apex of that concept. Cal Zuck will summon the enemies she's faced in the waves getting here, and she'll have to apply everything she's learned in order to deal with them during her final battle. Like the Nibblers, they aren't interested in her, but her shield.
The angry frog.
That was amazing walk. Like, perfect walk. Keep hitting the boss, though. Keep hitting the boss.
Yep.
The entire fight is a test of staying behind the shield while dealing with the same stacking principles from the caves. And at the top of that stack is a fight with Jad while hiding from Zuck. Just keep with the shield and flick Jad. Nice blood brush on the wings.
Okay, he's down.
He's down. Okay, back to hitting Zuck. With the Jad down, it's now a race to the finish. Zuck will summon healers at a quarter of his health and speeds up his attack cycle. There's a second set of monsters on the way, and with her supply, she's gonna have to commit to taking him down before that happens. Healers are by far her weakest phase of the Zuck fight, but I think every learner would say that. It just comes down to keeping a cool head and doing what needs to be done. Get him off of him. Get him off of him. Get those healers off of him. Get those healers off of him. Okay, they're all off, they're all off, they're all off. Keep hitting them. You're doing great walking right now, by the way. Okay, one's down. Stay ahead of it, stay ahead of the shield. Keep hitting him. Nice. Okay. You're doing fine. You're doing fine. Restore. Restore, and then you need to kill that one. Okay. Okay. Stay with the shield. Stay with the shield. Kill Zuck. Kill Zuck. Stay with the shield. Just breathe. Just breathe. Take it slow. There's nothing to be afraid of. You got plenty of time, okay?
Okay.
Just walk, stay ahead of the shield a little bit. Keep clicking them. You're so close. Stay with the shield. Stay with the shield. There's a set coming, but stay with the shield. Keep clicking them. You can do it.
Okay.
Don't click on the red tiles. Good. Good.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
You got it!
I got him! I did it!
Oh my god, the set was right there.
I got my Inferno
She couldn't have finished at a better time because as I am editing this, sailing is live. And I've been watching Taryn sail up and down the coast of RuneScape without me. I'm trapped over here in editing purgatory. The hardest part of making this video has been how often I've paused to try out the new skill. Thank you again to Jagex and the OSRS team for sponsoring this video and making such an awesome and fun new addition to the game. If you'd like to hang out with us while you grind out the skill, head on over to Twitch and hit us with a follow. A massive thank you to our wonderful patrons and channel members as well. Extra special thanks goes out to our sixth wheelers, Daniel Rogers, Gizmo, Isaac Vogan, David Webb, Mace, Albino the Infernape, Gray Sleepy, Taco Supreme, Harav Skittles, Envy, Shane Boy, and Cerberus. Now, if you'll excuse me, the two of us have some max capes to go reobtain.
Now bring me that horizon.